Welcome back to Inktoberfest. So today we're here with Avery Elle, and they have an amazing range of inks, and they've sent me all of them. You can see them here. Look at this gorgeous rainbow that we have to work with. Now the majority of them, so this column and these three here, are all pigment inks, so that's what we have. And then we have 2 dye inks. So I really want to focus on pigment inks because I don't talk about them very often. Now, pigment inks are your friend if you want to work with anything water-based. That's when you're going to want to use them. But today I really want to give you some tips and tricks for working with pigment inks, because I think now we have hybrid inks and things. We don't often talk about when to use dye, when to use pigment. And I showed you some dye-based ink tips the other day. You can go back and check those out on Catherine Pooler's day. So today is all about the pigment ink day. So I have used a couple of her inks before, but I have not ever used this full rainbow. So I also have a set of these to give away. So after this video, go check out the blog post. You can find out where I'm giving that set of inks away. So thank you so much, Avery Elle. They even wrote me this really sweet note and a lovely notepad. I always need notepads. So I'm super appreciative to have that as well. So I'm first of all going to grab a couple of tags. So I think I might need them because I want to show you some good and bad and the pros and cons that you want to remember with pigment ink. So I'm going to pick out some of my favorite colors here. Okay, these are my absolute favorites. We'll see if we need any other colors. Okay, now there will be a coupon code, of course, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel and the playlist, make sure you've done that. Make sure you have hit that like button, rung the bell, you know, all those good things. Join the Hedgehog Follow community, check out today's coupon code, you know, all those fun things. Okay, so I'm just using a craft pick to open them up. This is that one essential tool that every single crafter needs, and you know I love mine. Okay. Look what short work it makes of opening everything. I also have this Sea-prise stamp set from Avery Elle. I asked Greg to pick me some of his favorite Avery Elle stamp sets, and he picked that. He picked Birthday Bus, and he picked Frosty Friends. So that's what he picked for us to work with. And I think I'm going to start with Sea-prise. And I'm just going to use my MISTI because it happens to be out. Okie dokes. So let's open this up and let's grab our stamp set. I'm just going to start with the little puffer fish down here. Okay. And we're going to stamp him. Let's stamp him up here. Isn't he cute with his little party hat on? I think he needs to be in orange to start with. Okay. So as I say, these are your friend for working with anything water-based. They're not going to react. So don't use them with alcohol markers. Gamsol is kind of a solvent, so I say no. But anything water, these are your friends. Okay, so let's stamp this out. Now, pigment takes a while to dry. So, okay, this is going to buck my trend, but normally if you stamp instantly, so these are amazing because normally if I stamp and do this, they're going to smudge, and actually it kind of has. If I pull this up, it's not as crisp as I'd like it to be. And that's because pigment sits on the surface. So a little bit of a chemistry behind pigment. Pigment sits on the surface of your stamp, of your ink. Start again. Pigment sits on the surface of your cardstock, and then it kind of like air dries, whereas dye absorbs into the cardstock. Now the great thing about that is if I grab myself something dark like this navy blue and I stamp the same little guy out just like this. And sometimes you have to do it a couple of times to really make it pop. You're going to be able to stamp with pigment inks and get that pigment to pop on dark cardstock. So you see how you can get that color to pop on the dark. So it's going to depend on the color. I mean, if I was to use like this silvery color, it's going to show up even more, but you're going to be able to get that color to pop on a dark surface. Whereas if I had an orange dye ink, I'm never going to see that on a dark surface. So I'm actually going to trim this out and I'm going to write on here. And I'm going to start writing myself some notes. And if you have a pigment ink pad, I kind of suggest doing the same. That's why I've got a couple of tags out with this one. I mean, not the best trimming in the world, Alex, but we'll live. And I moved my glue drawer around, so of course I can't find anything anymore. But here's a tape runner. And we're going to stick this on. So let's start writing out some notes. So we've got 2019 day. I'm all out kilter today. What are we on? We are on day 14. So pigment sits on surface, needs time to dry. Okay, will pop on dark card. Okay, so they're the first few things to know about pigment. So it needs time to dry and it sits on surface and it will pop on dark cardstock. So there's a couple of things to pop on your tag. And if there's other things that I mentioned, you might want to pop those on there. So that's our first little guy done, and I'll clean this up after. And then we're going to take our little shark, where's he gone here, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. So one thing I suggest doing with pigment ink regardless is always heat drying it. That's what I like to do. Okay. So we're going to pop this guy down. So one thing I really like to do with my pigment inks, and this is the perfect thing about pigment inks that lots of people will tell you is their favorite thing about them, is the fact you can heat emboss them. So if you don't have embossing ink, but you do have a pigment ink, you can use it as your embossing ink. All the colors are going to stick to it. But one of the best things is you can always add clear embossing powder to it. So I have here my tonic crystal clear, because that's the one that I happen to have in my stash. Like this. And I have my little pink spoon ready to go. And what should we do our little guy in? I think we're doing aquamarine. So you're not going to have a ton of time. It's not going to stay as wet or for as long as you know, some inks do. The one really nice thing about these inks, like the Catherine Pooler ones, they have that spongy pad, which I think just gives you really nice coverage on your stamped image. But it also gives you this really nice crystal clear image. It's going to stamp really nicely first time. And I'm just going to sprinkle him with some embossing powder. This, to say, is the crystal clear. And I know I didn't anti-static or anything, but these are just practice pieces. Okay, so put that on. Probably not best to do it on top of your sticky grid either, but it's okay. So I'm going to grab my Wagner heat tool, and I'm going to heat. And you'll notice it's going back to that darker blue as it's drying. And what I find that does is it just gives it a really nice pop. Also, if you're practicing, particularly with water, it gives you some nice containment as well, which I really like. I always like some containment there. And it just gives some nice depth and dimension to your project. So rather than having to have a ton of different colored embossing powders and different colors of inks and all of those things, you can grab some different colors of pigment ink and just have those on there. And now I have, and hopefully, yeah, it's pretty dry. I always worry about it being hot. I have done it too quickly and really burnt myself by my embossing powder doing too hot. But now I have that really nice kind of raised image. It looks like I've used colored embossing powder, but I haven't. I've just used colored pigment ink with a clear embossing powder over the top. So super, super cool on there. Doesn't that just look awesome? I think he's super cute. I love him. Okay, so we'll write some extra notes on here. So I'm also going to write back on this one. Should always heat dry. I'm also going to write on this one, pigment works with water-based mediums, like this. And here, can always be heat if you work quickly. So this is what is perfect about these tags. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a little circle at the top there. And you could do this on one tag, but I just kind of like the idea of being able to flip through and see things easily because these are today's techniques. So, you know, we're really building up a great repertoire of tips and techniques and all sorts of different fun things. See, I told you I was out of kilter yesterday too. So I'm just going to hop this one over. We've learned about stenciling with your Nuvo drops. We've learned about stenciling with embossing powder. We have learned about creating backgrounds with alcohol markers. We've learned about so many different things already. And tomorrow we are almost pretty much at that halfway point, and we've got, again, more fun things for you to find out, to learn. Again, I'm giving away a whole set of these ink pads. If you want to add them to your collection, there is an exclusive coupon code as well, and that you can go over to Avery Elle and use. So go check that out on the blog too. Lots of fun things still to come your way in the rest of Inktoberfest. So come back tomorrow. I can't wait to see you. I hope you're enjoying this well. Do leave me a comment with what has been your favorite so far. I would love to know, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.